On the 16th until the 21st of November, the AIS Forum supported the Training on Mangrove Health Index held by Research Center for Oceanography of the Indonesia Institute of Sciences, or LIPI, and the UNESCO IOC Subcommission for the Western Pacific, or WESTPAC. On the 18th of November, the AIS Forum partnered with Gadjah Mada University's Department of Development Geography in conducting the Training on the Implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, in tourism industry. On the 19th of November, the AIS Blue Startup Hub collaborated with Angel Investment Network, conducting the Blue Innovation Workshop, which discussed opportunities in building solutions for the sustainable ocean economy. In this opportunity, the AIS Blue Hub invited various experts, including from UNDP Africa's Accelerator Lab and NVU Netherlands. On the 23rd of November, the AIS Forum partnered with the Indonesian Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs, held a workshop on sea level rise and its impact to the state's boundaries, the case of the archipelagic and island countries. The expert panel from AIS countries has been invited to share insights and strategic solutions on the impact of climate change. On the 30th of November, the AIS Forum and the UNDP's Marine Plastic Debris Projects will launch the Ending Plastic Pollution Innovation Challenge through a workshop. Share best practices from Indonesia's experience with Marine Spatial Planning, or MSP, and to encourage AIS Forum participating countries to develop and implement their own MSPs, Indonesian Directorate General of Marine Spatial Management and the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on the 1st of December 2020. On the 3rd of December, the Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on building with nature approach in coastal management. This approach can improve area protection and resilience for vulnerable communities. As a road to the Archipelagic and Island States Forum's third ministerial meeting, the AIS Forum Secretariat arranged several side events which are conducted in collaboration with various academic institutions, government, and private sector. On the 12th of November 2020, the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs Directorate for Development, Economic and Environmental Affairs held the workshop on mainstreaming ocean climate relations in global climate discussion. On the 16th until the 21st of November, the AIS Forum supported the Training on Mangrove Health Index held by Research Center for Oceanography of the Indonesia Institute of Sciences, or LIPI, and the UNESCO IOC Subcommission for the Western Pacific, or WESTPAC. On the 18th of November, the AIS Forum partnered with Gadjah Mada University's Department of Development Geography in conducting the Training on the Implementation the AIS Blue Startup Hub collaborated with Angel Investment Network, conducting the Blue Innovation Workshop, which discussed opportunities in building solutions for the sustainable ocean economy. In this opportunity, the AIS Blue Hub invited various experts, including from UNDP Africa's Accelerator Lab and NVU Netherlands. On the 23rd of November, the AIS Forum partnered with the Indonesian Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs, held a workshop on sea level rise and its impact to the state's boundaries, the case of the archipelagic and island countries. The expert panel from AIS countries has been invited to share insights and strategic solutions on the impact of climate change. On the 30th of November, the AIS Forum and the UNDP's Marine Plastic Debris Projects will launch the Ending Plastic Pollution Innovation Challenge through a share best practices from Indonesia Directorate General of Marine Spatial Management and the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on the 1st of December 2020. On the 3rd of December, the Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on building with nature approach in coastal management. This approach can improve area protection and resilience for vulnerable communities. As a road to the Archipelagic and Island States Forum's third ministerial meeting, the AIS Forum Secretariat arranged several side events which are conducted in collaboration with various academic institutions, government, and private sector. On the 12th of November 2020, the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs Directorate for Development, Economic and Environmental Affairs held the workshop on main of November, the AIS Forum supported the training on Mangrove Health Index held by Research Center for Oceanography of the Indonesia Institute of Sciences, or LIPI, and the UNESCO IOC Subcommission for the Western Pacific, or WESTPAC. On the 18th of November, the AIS Forum partnered with Gadjah Mada University's Department of Development Geography in conducting the training on the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, in tourism industry. On the 19th of November, collaborated with Angel Investment Network, conducting the Blue Innovation Workshop, which discussed opportunities in building solution for the sustainable ocean economy. In this opportunity, the AIS Blue Hub invited various experts, including from Kazakh Accelerator Lab and NVU Netherlands. On the 23rd of November, the AIS Forum partnered with the Indonesian Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs, held a workshop on sea level rise and its impact to the state's boundaries, the case of the archipelagic and island countries. The expert panel from AIS countries has been invited to share insights and strategic solutions on the impact of climate change. On the 30th of November, the AIS Forum and the UNDP's Marine Plastic Debris Projects will launch the Ending Plastic Pollution Innovation Challenge through a workshop. Share best practices from Indonesia's experience with Marine Spatial Planning, or MSP, and to encourage AIS Forum participating countries to develop and implement their own MSPs, Indonesian Directorate General of Marine Spatial Management and the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on the 1st of December 2020. On the 3rd of December, the Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on building with nature approach in coastal management. This approach can improve area protection and resilience for vulnerable communities. As a road to the Archipelagic and Island States Forum's third ministerial meeting, the AIS Forum Secretariat arranged several side events which are conducted in collaboration with various academic institutions, government, and private sector. On the 12th of November 2020, the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs Directorate for Development, Economic and Environmental Affairs held the workshop on mainstreaming ocean climate relations in global climate discussion. On the 16th until the 21st of November, the AIS Forum supported the training on Mangrove Health Index held by Research Center for Oceanography of the Indonesia Institute of Sciences, or LIPI, and the UNESCO IOC Subcommission for the Western Pacific, or WESTPAC. On the 18th of November, the AIS Forum partnered with Gadjah Mada University's Department of Development Geography in conducting the training on the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, in tourism industry. On the 19th of November, the AIS Blue Startup Hub collaborated with Angel Investment Network, conducting the Blue Innovation Workshop, which discussed opportunities in building solutions for the sustainable ocean economy. In this opportunity, the AIS Blue Hub invited 23rd of November, the AIS Forum partnered with the Indonesian Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs, held a workshop on sea level rise and its impact to the state's boundaries, the case of the archipelagic and island countries. The expert panel from AIS countries has been invited to share insights and strategic solutions on the impact of climate change. On the 30th of November, the AIS Forum and the UNDP's Marine Plastic Debris Projects will launch the Ending Plastic Pollution Innovation Challenge through a workshop. Share best practices from Indonesia's experience with Marine Spatial Planning, or MSP, and to encourage AIS Forum participating countries to develop and implement their own MSPs, Indonesian Directorate General of Marine Spatial Management and the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on the 1st of December 2020. On the 3rd of December, the Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on building with nature approach in coastal management. As a road to the Archipelagic and Island States Forum's third ministerial meeting, the AIS Forum Secretariat arranged several side events which are conducted in collaboration with various academic institutions, government, and private sector. In 2020, the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs Directorate for Development, Economic and Environmental Affairs held the workshop on mainstreaming ocean climate relations in global climate discussion. On the 16th until the 21st of November, the AIS Forum supported the training on Mangrove Health Index held by Research Center for Oceanography of the Indonesia Institute of Sciences, or LIPI, and the UNESCO IOC for the Western Pacific, or WESTPAC. On the 18th of November, the AIS Forum partnered with Gadjah Mada University's Department of Development Geography in conducting the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, in tourism industry.
Good afternoon, good morning, dear participants. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. Well, hello, everyone, dear participants, dear presenters, dear excellencies. Thank you very much for joining this webinar training as part of the Archipelagic Islanded States Forum. This webinar is a training by the Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, MMAF, and it is titled A Building with Nature Approach in Coastal Management. I'm Frank Hofman, your host this morning or this afternoon for this session. Or your moderator. The host, of course, is the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. And I am based at Wetlands International in the Netherlands, and I am one of the participants in the project called Building with Nature in Indonesia that also was led by Ministry of Marine Affairs. During this webinar, which will take until 4 o'clock Indonesia time or 10 o'clock Central European time, we will have a few speeches and presentations presented to you. First, we will have 2 welcoming remarks. Then we will have a presentation session with Q&A. And then we will have another second presentation session with Q&A. We would like to invite you to mute your microphone as long as you yourself are not speaking, because then we will not hear any disturbances and we can hear clearly what you want to say when there is moments for Q&A later on during the presentations. Thank you very much for your understanding. There's all sorts of functions also in the Zoom where you can actually make yourself heard or seen by applauding and sending other remarks. You probably are familiar with Zoom after this year of Corona, I hope. I hope also that everyone is healthy and okay, and that you will enjoy this webinar today. The objectives are actually to provide you with information on the concepts of what it means to have building with nature, provide information on the processes of design stages on what it means to do building with nature, provide information on what are barriers and enablers in actually applying this approach, and also share experiences, especially from Indonesia, where this project was done in the area of Demak. Where we will hear more also about in the presentations. Are there any questions so far? Also, I think this is a recorded session, so please be aware of that we are also being recorded. And there's also a chat room next to it where you can ask questions when this is needed to either other participants or to us. After these first remarks, I would like to invite Mr. Paksora Lukita. He's the acting director of delimitation of marine zones and bordering territories in the Republic of Indonesia at the Coordinating Chief Maritime and Investment Affairs. I would like to invite to make some welcome remarks, please. Mr.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Thank you very much, Frank. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Very good morning, very good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you very much for taking time to attend today's event. We are very grateful that all of you are here. And I'm also delighted by the amount of interest shown by the side event programs of the IS Forum third ministerial meeting. This event is a part of a collaborative program, Smart Innovative Solution for the Archipelagic and Island States countries. During this workshop, we will hear from the experts that have been working on the concept and the ongoing implementation of building with nature in Indonesia. But before proceeding, let me first acknowledge the presence of Mr. Muhammad Yusuf, Director of Coastal and Small Islands Utilizations from the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of the Republic of Indonesia, Ms. Peggy Nurhabni from the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Foko van der Goot, Program manager of EcoSafe. Of course, I would like also to welcome Mr. Frank Hoffman from Wetland Indonesia. I would like also to warmly welcome all participants from the representative of embassies in Jakarta, especially from the Archipelagic and Island States Country Network, the technical community, the academic community, civil society, and all other stakeholders groups joining us today. Distinguished speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen, the government of Indonesia has been working closely with the UNDP and the AAS Forum Secretariat to support collaborations between the archipelagic and island states around the world. Under the Manado Joint Declaration Agreement of 2018 and the AAS Forum final outcome of 2019, the AAS Forum Secretariat is tasked with supporting the forum in formulating a strategy to identify and refine high priority areas of development. By making commitments and working together on concrete actions, participating archipelagic and island states can begin to address shared challenges. Last week, on the 25th November of 2020, the third ministerial meeting of the AAS Forum agreed to further enhance cooperations in the following 4 areas. They are sustainable ocean development, blue economy strategic cooperation, blue digital connectivity, and of course, last but not least, ocean sustainability investment. The meeting also adopted a final outcome, which recognized the importance of promoting cooperation and capacity building between archipelagic and island states to seize new opportunities and to address sustainable development related challenges. The meeting itself was attended by representatives of 23 countries, 6 international organizations, and 1 observer. The AAS Forum provides us with an opportunity to share our ideas, opinions, and experiences about the shared challenges that we face. It is also an opportunity for us to research and develop practical solutions that are capable of addressing coastal and marine development in an integrated and holistic manner relevant to archipelagic and island states. As well, the AAS Forum is a platform for countries and the international community to focus available resources, knowledge, and expertise to address development issues through the formation of smart and innovative solutions. Pak Muhammad Yusuf, distinguished speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen. The effect of climate change can be devastating to vulnerable coastal and marine areas, including through rapid and drastic changes in the structure and functioning of ecosystems. For example, rising sea levels can alter the shape of coastline, contribute to coastal erosions, cause flooding, and induce underground saltwater intrusion. For many archipelagic and island states, the impact of climate change, which is sea level rise, also threatens their long-term survival, as entire portion of nation territory, including recognized maritime zones, can be altered through the permanent submersion of terrestrial areas. If the impact of climate change are not adequately addressed at the appropriate scales, archipelagic and island states risk a potential feature of muted, unsustainable development. The challenge of climate change needs to be addressed through holistic ecosystem-based the challenge of climate change needs to be addressed through holistic ecosystem-based approaches to development, such as integrated coastal zone management. This is crucial for building the foundation of sustainable coastal management designed to support socioeconomic development, the conservation of biodiversity, and the protection of ecosystem services. Distinguished speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen, integrated coastal zone management is proven tool to deal with the current and long-term coastal development challenges, including climate change and its impacts. The management of coastal areas require the application of holistic solutions that account for social, economic, and environmental factors. One option for developing and applying holistic solutions to coastal development issues is building with nature. This program is the result of collaboration between the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, the Ministry of Public Works and Public Housing, which together represent the Indonesian government through the EcoShape Consortium. Distinguished speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen, we know that we need to build appropriate frameworks that provide the best chance of successfully managing our resources in an integrated and sustainable way, drawing on our heritage and our more recent best practices, standards, and limits set by our communities and international bodies. It is hoped the collaborative programs can explore novel development solutions through experimentation and knowledge sharing to produce tangible social, economic, and environmental benefits at local, regional, and international scales. Lastly, I'm certain these new approaches will effectively contribute to the ongoing global effort to share innovative development solutions between archipelagic and island states. As Socrates once said, the secret of change is to focus all our energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Sora Lokita, for your welcoming and warm words as an introduction to this session. Thank you very much. Then I would also like to invite now Mr. Pak Muhammad Yusuf, who is the Director of Coastal and Small Islands Utilization at the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries in Indonesia, to also welcome everyone to this webinar. Please.
Hello, can you hear my voice? Hello?
Hello,
okay,
yes, Pak, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Friend, good afternoon and good morning. The Honorable Mr. Sora Lokita, Acting Director Delimitation of Marine Zone and Bordering Territory, Minister of Marine and Investment Affairs, Mr. Foko van der Goed from the EcoShape, Mr. Frank Hoffman from the Wetland International, and distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, peace upon all of all us. I would like to thank you all for being able to join us in our webinar today. It's honored for me to able to welcome to all of you to the workshop on building with nature approach in coastal management. This workshop presented by cooperation of various institutions, Ministry of Marine and Investment Affairs, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, EIS Forum Secretariat, UNDP, EcoShape, Wetlands International. I will give you the overview of the building with nature approach and its implementation in coastal management, especially for coastal protection, which is a big issue for the archipelagic and island states. Fellow speakers and participants, archipelagic and island states facing the direct impact of climate change, sea level rise in particular, even though the impact is low on set, but it still can affect the economy and environmental sustainability of the area. Some member states come with the hard structure solution to protect its coastal area. There is nothing wrong with it, but the hard structure solution often more high price for its construction and maintenance. Therefore, many alternative solutions emerge. One of them is the nature-based solution, which we call as building with nature approach. The building with nature approach can be an option in coastal area management to increase area protection and resilience for vulnerable communities amidst rapid development and environmental degradation and climate change. Besides prioritizing working with the nature and its technical application, the building with nature approach also emphasized the importance of the community participation and other relevant cross-sector parties in the formulation of integrated rehabilitation program, both from the ecological and social economic side. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia has carried out various concrete actions to deal with environmental problems in coastal area, including by implementing the building with nature approach. The Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, in collaboration with the Ministry of Public Works and Housing, the district government of Demak, and supported by the Indonesian Dutch Consortium, has become a pioneer in implementing the building with nature approach to increase resilience in the northern coast of Java, especially in the Demak region. We see that this collaboration has shown promising results to providing integrated solutions for handling water infrastructure. The program has successfully restoring around 477 hectares of coastal area by installing the semi-permeable structure with allow mangroves to grow naturally. Implementing mixed mangrove aquaculture and revitalizing fish pond. Building with nature also embracing the coastal community using bio-rights scheme or conditional loan funds. These funds are given to 10 community group members in 9 villages of Demak. Our experience shows that the building with nature approach can only work our experience shows that the building with nature approach can only work well if implemented together with the local communities. We emphasize the local communities who already have local knowledge and who will benefit from the initiative. Therefore, it is important to emphasize that improving people's livelihood should be included as important part of overall approach. This become even more important when we together with the community are facing the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. Fellow speakers and participants, learning from the experience of implementing building with nature in Indonesia, the concept of building with nature approach needs to encourage to be applied more broadly as part of effort to reduce the disaster risk and adapt to climate change, considering that the implementation of building with nature not only for coastal area, but also for river, urban, and other systems. The approach we have implemented has received attention from academics, practitioners, and government, both Indonesia and abroad, such as from the Asia, African, European region. For this reason, Indonesia is keen to share its experience with the other countries in applying building with nature as a capacity building process. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, I officially open the workshop on building with nature in coastal management. I hope you can actively participate in this workshop and have a fruitful discussion for the next 2 hours. Let this workshop be a concrete step to our global action in fighting climate change. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Frank.
Thank you, terima kasih, Director. Thank you for these welcoming words and actually setting the scene for this workshop, and also your encouragements to distinguished participants and our excellencies who are in this workshop. I think your remarks, as also the acting director remarks, were a good way to setting the scene to introduce the experience that Indonesia has with building with nature and in its application in one of the largest island nations in the world, or the largest island nation in the world. And I think it's good to now learn about this and also to get some more understanding about what it actually is, this concept of building with nature. So I am happy now to go to the first session and presentation in this webinar. And I would like to invite Mr. Focko van der Goot of EcoShape to start his first presentation on what is the building with nature approach.
Thank you very much, Frank. Can you hear me and can you see my presentation clearly?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Great. So first of all, I would like to thank MMIF and the AIS Forum to invite me to provide a workshop or a presentation on the building with nature approach. Also, thank you for the great and inspiring introductory words by Yusuf and by Paulo Kita that really set the scene well. So my presentation will focus on the building with nature approach. First, let me start introducing myself. My name is Focko van der Goot. I'm from the Netherlands. I have a master in environmental engineering, and I have over 14-year experience in working in the water infrastructure world, mainly focusing on marine infrastructure projects. And since 2016, I'm program manager at the Building with Nature knowledge development program, which is executed by the EcoShape Foundation. I will tell more about the EcoShape Foundation a little bit later. So this presentation is split up in three parts. First, I'm going to introduce the building with nature approach. Then we have a short break for some questions. Then we dive into the design principles of building with nature. Again, followed by a short Q&A session. And the third part will focus on the barriers and, more importantly, the enablers to realize building with nature concepts in practice. And again, at the end, followed by a Q&A session. So please, if you have any questions, put them in the comment section and we will discuss them throughout the session. Okay, so let's start with the overall building with nature approach. As already addressed by the introductory words, globally we face many challenges. Climate change, loss of biodiversity, reducing resources, increasing populations, and these are particularly important for small island states like Indonesia and other countries. In 2019, there was a climate action summit in New York, and there was a very clear message being released that there's no time for discussing this anymore. The time for action is now. So we need to step up. We need to focus on integrated solutions to tackle these challenges. And this is particularly important for low-lying deltas and small island states like the members of this forum. So what is the main issue with the current solutions we have? The main infrastructure solutions we are currently implementing, and we have been implementing these for centuries, they are mainly single-purpose solutions. So they are implemented to tackle only one issue, for example, flood protection or economical development or increased navigational purposes. And this has led to several issues. Disturbance of ecosystems, disturbance of natural processes, decrease in water qualities, decrease in biodiversity. And these impacts are even strengthened by the challenges we are facing now, sea level rise, but also processes like subsidence. So these single purpose solutions are no longer sufficient to tackle these challenges. And we also see that everything is connected. So if you only focus on one part, if you only intervene in one part, for example, blocking the waves or blocking, try to level the rivers, then you see that other aspects in the landscape will be impacted severely. So an integrated solution is needed, and this also requires an integrated approach. So since about 5-10 years, there's a global trend visible to call for nature-based solutions for climate-resilient infrastructure. Many organizations, IUCN, UNDP, the World Bank, the European Union, they're all developing policies and developing guidelines on how nature-based solutions could help fighting these challenges. However, you also see that the implementation of these projects are quite limited so far. And the question is, why is this actually? And that's because of 4 reasons. That's because nature-based solutions in general are dynamic. By integrating nature as a primary part of your solution means that as nature is dynamic, that these solutions are also dynamic. So where the traditional infrastructure is more static, and we know how they function in practice, nature-based solutions, they tend to change over time, and we don't have the feeling yet and the principles yet on how to manage these. Nature-based solutions are multifunctional, and that means that they have more than one function. In the beginning, I presented the traditional solutions, traditional engineering approaches focus on one solution only, single-purpose solutions. Nature-based solutions, they integrate multiple functions, for example, flood defense, recreation, nature development, local economy. These are all integrated in one intervention. And in order to implement this intervention, it also requires an integrated and multi-stakeholder approach. Nature-based solutions are by definition innovative, so they're new. That means that we don't know yet. We don't know exactly yet how they function in a certain setting. That means you need to really focus on understanding the local and the context-specific conditions. And it's not only the physical conditions, but also the ecological conditions, the socio-economic conditions, and the governance. So all these aspects of the system need to be understood very well before and nature-based solutions can be designed and implemented. And this requires a new way of thinking and acting and interacting. And this is something we need to learn and we need to practice. So this need for transition focuses on the traditional approach where we construct something in nature towards an approach where we build something with nature. And with nature means that we make use of the services that nature provides and make them an integral part of the water-based infrastructure. And that results in a co-benefits and additional values for not only for the economy, but also for nature and for society. So this principle was initiated about 12 years ago in the Netherlands. And one of the key aspects of this principle was that the realization that you cannot do this on your own. So you need to do this not only with different disciplines, but with different sectors. You need to collaborate between sectors in order to cover all these aspects of these nature-based solutions. So a partnership was set up, the EcoShape partnership. It's a foundation, and in this foundation, the public sector, the private sector, contractors and engineering firms, knowledge institutes, universities and laboratories and NGOs are collectively working together on understanding the principles of building with nature. So how was this done? Again, the sectors were collaborating with the shared ambition. So the shared ambitions was defined, and the shared ambitions was fundamental understanding of how building with nature principles work in different settings, in different environments, in sandy environments, in muddy environments, tropical environments, the more moderate environments. And we applied a bottom-up approach. So rather than developing high-level guidelines, we started. Yeah, thank you. We started testing from bottom up. We started constructing pilots, and from these pilots, we tried to learn generic lessons. And with these generic lessons, we developed guidelines, and these guidelines were distributed amongst a very large network in order to aim at upscaling and mainstreaming of this concept. And a very important part was that we started with constructing pilots rather than developing generic guidance on these principles. So we really started working from the field, see how these new concepts work in practice, and try to learn and upskill and disseminate the lessons learned from these projects. So the pilot portfolio we have been working on from the past 12 years, focusing on nature-based flood defenses, resilient cities, port developments, and ecosystem restoration. And actually many of these pilots have multiple of these functions in it. So they're both nature-based flood defenses as well as ecosystem restoration, or they are sustainable port development as well as developments for resilient cities. So there's always an integration of functions that makes them very strong, but also innovative and therefore challenging to implement. So I would like to show a few examples of the projects we have been working on from the past 12 years. First of all, this has been mentioned a few times already in the introduction speeches, the Building with Nature Indonesia project, where we tried to create a mangrove-based economy in an area that was heavily degraded by as a result of erosion and subsidence. By providing integrated solutions focusing on restoring mangroves, creating more sustainable aquaculture, and capacity building amongst the local communities, we are aiming to implement an integrated approach for the entire region at landscape level. The Sand Motor, a project in the Netherlands focusing on strengthening sandy beaches. Like in many of these areas in the world, sandy beaches need to be maintained, especially in more eroding environments. And this is done on a yearly basis or a 2-yearly basis. And this is not very effective. It's quite expensive. And then every time you do an intervention, you basically impact the environment heavily by smothering the seabed again with a new layer of sand. So instead of doing this every year or every 2 years, we decided to do one really big mega nourishment of over 40 million cubic meters, focusing on one spot. So creating basically a very massive sandbar, and by a very extensive monitoring and modeling campaign, we have predicted how this sand body would distribute over time along the coast and basically naturally feed the sandy beaches. So it's a sand motor that makes use of the tidal currents and the waves to distribute the sand along the coast. So it's a more natural nourishment activity. So we don't have to intervene in this area for the next 20 years anymore, 25 years. So it was a one-time intervention to result in a strengthening of over 30 years. And this was combined with a very extensive scientific and applied knowledge development program. The Markerwadden, also in the Netherlands, a heavily degraded ecosystem in the Markermeer, a very turbid environment. And we extracted fine sediments from the lake and built a large archipelago of nature islands from it, which benefited the local economy, local recreation, and it stimulated the ecosystem restoration of the entire lake. So you see, after this was realized between 2016 and 2018, and you already see a very large impact on a positive impact on the water quality and also the biodiversity. There are many birds and water life and vegetation now in this area that wasn't there before. The Houtdijk, I will present this case later on in my presentation. Houtdijk is an important road in the Netherlands that had to be reinforced. And instead of doing this in a traditional way with rock and asphalt and stones, a sandy solution was chosen. And by beneficially reuse a lot of dredge material, a very large nature reserve was constructed along the road. And this provides both protection as well as provides stimulants for increasing biodiversity and ecosystem restoration. The Marconi project, salt marsh development along a port. So instead of reinforcing the outer breakwater of a port with rocks and asphalt, it was chosen to create a salt marsh in front of it. And the salt marsh has multiple functions. It reduces the wave impact on the port, and it provides all kinds of ecosystem services like trapping fine sediment, so water quality is improved. There's salt marshes being developed, which has a positive impact on the biodiversity. There are a lot of birds, and it's a great place for the local residents and the local economy in terms of tourism. So a lot of people are attracted by this area, and it used to be let's say a boring port, and now it's a very interesting and interesting place to visit. So all this experience has resulted in the generation of what we call building with nature concepts. So from a pilot level, we have extracted the concept principles, and by doing that, we developed 27 building with nature concepts that can be applied in many different environments: sandy coasts, muddy coasts, in rivers, lowland lakes, and ports and cities. And for all these concepts, we have experienced how they work in practice and how you can translate them to other settings. So this provides a very nice, let's say, toolbox that can be applied by any project developer or policymaker in order to realize more nature-based solutions for water infrastructure projects. So with this slide, I want to end the first part of the presentation. I don't know if there's any questions have come in yet.
Yes, please, dear participants, you're invited to have to ask a few questions to what the concept of building with nature approach is. You can also post your questions in the chat if you like to. You can also do that afterwards. Then the team can also look at those questions. But is there anyone from the audience who wishes to ask a question to Foucault on the concept of building with nature, on the things that you have seen right now?
I will present a lot more examples later on. So and we can also, if not, we can continue and ask questions later.
Yeah. Hello, Foucault. Can I ask a question? Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Foucault, I would like to ask about the challenges in building with nature, in your case, in what you presented today in your country or in other part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So you want to know about the challenges we have faced in realizing building with nature projects. The third part of this presentation will focus on the barriers and enablers of building with nature. So the barriers we can, these are basically the challenges we have faced. But just briefly, like I mentioned in this presentation, building with nature solutions are new. They are innovative, they are dynamic. So there's no ready-made solution on the shelf that can be implemented like you have with traditional solutions, engineering solutions. So every situation requires a different way of working and requires a lot of stakeholder management and stakeholder engagement in order to identify all these multiple benefits and how you integrate them into a one integral solution. And I think that process takes time, and I think that's one of the key principles of a Building with Nature project. You start from the very beginning with all these people working together with a shared ambition to realize a more sustainable development, and that's a challenge on its own. But it's also in the end rewarding. But it takes a lot of it takes effort to do that. But I will come to that later, also in in the third part of this presentation.
Okay, thank you, Coco.
Thank you for this question and Foko for this first part of the presentation. I suggest that we continue with the next part on the design of Building with Nature. And I think in the meantime, people can still think about other questions that that may come up, so that we can also ask them later on. Please.
So I show this slide again, which I was also in the first part, because it's a key aspect of implementation of Building with Nature solutions. These aspects need to be. We need to realize that that Building with Nature solutions are dynamic, that they are multifunctional, and that it requires a different way of thinking and acting and interacting in order to realize these solutions. So with the traditional approach, I want to focus on this section on let's say the design principles and the steps you need to undertake in order to implement this approach, in order to come to an integrated, more sustainable, nature-based solution. And it's good to compare this with the more traditional approach, which is a rather sectoral and a narrow scope and a more let's say linear approach. It starts at point A, and it's in the end you go one way in order to realize the solution. So the traditional infrastructure works used to be realized without paying much attention to the potential environmental impact. So the focus is on building and not on nature, and that results in that you build something in nature, and that needs to be either compensated or you accept a certain loss of nature. So most hydraulic infrastructure is regarded as static, with a predetermined lifespan, and designed with a number of predetermined environmental design conditions. So the design process is aimed at finding the most cost-effective solution that requires a certain functionality. So if you start with this focus from the very beginning, there will be a small chance that it will end up as an integrated multi-purpose solution, if you only focus on the most cost-effective way to realize something. And that also, if you approach it in this way, that means that the execution of the project, the construction, will be very reactive. So there will be strict adherence to the environmental norms. So you approach it in an let's say reactive way, focusing on limiting the impact rather than seizing the opportunities that there are for creating integrated solutions. So the Building with Nature approach is wider and focusing more on the greener aspects of the development. So the design approach requires that all parties involved to think differently and to take a new perspective on how the project should be realized. Evaluation of a number of successful Building with Nature cases has has shown that that this new perspective can be characterized by extending the problem-solving approach that is used in the traditional engineering to a more ecologically aspired and opportunity-seizing attitude. So from a project development perspective, this means that starting with the system in mind is key to realizing building with nature problems solutions. And this requires also an open mind. This requires daring use of creativity. This requires interdisciplinary and intersectoral approach. And that throughout the development process, the building with nature designer should continuously rephrase the most fundamental project objectives. So it's a continuous process of adapting to your focusing on your objectives and constantly adapting based on new information that comes in from this understanding of the system. So that requires an adaptive management approach rather than a very stringent linear approach. So for example, a common design objective is to design a safe and cost-effective hydraulic infrastructure with minimum impact for the environment. And if you look at from a building with nature approach, you can rephrase this to design a safe and cost-effective hydraulic infrastructure and optimize the mutual delivery of services to and by the environment. So if you include that into your basic objective from the very beginning and always reflect on that throughout the process of design, it is more likely that a more integrated solution will be realized. So look for win-win solutions that cater for more than one function and extending the traditional and proven design approaches by utilizing the dynamics of the environment and nature. And it also means that, especially during the execution phase, so the construction phase and the operational phase of a building with nature project, that you need to continuously monitor what is going on in the field and reflect on how these changes influence the function of your solution. And perhaps you need to adapt your solution. And it's typically easier to change a natural feature rather than a static feature. So a sandy beach is easier to reinforce than a dike that has been constructed based on a certain design requirements. So adapting nature-based solutions along the way is an adaptive management strategy that requires monitoring, but also the flexibility to change over time. Especially, for example, in light of climate change, where the sea level rise is a known fact, but how much the sea level rise is an uncertainty. And building with nature solutions typically can integrate these type of uncertainties, and that they can adapt over time based on the new information that is received on, let's say, a sea level rise forecast. So there are basically 5 steps to go through in this building with nature design process, and I would like to go through them one by one. They focus on understanding of the system, identify alternatives that use or provide values for nature and humans. The next step is evaluate each alternative to select an integral solution, refine these solutions, and prepare the solution for implementation. And this is a continuous process that goes through each phase of a project development. So step 1 is understand the system. The system is here considered as the not only the physical system, so the biotic and abiotic system, but even more importantly, the socio-economic system and the governance context, which is crucial for identifying the barriers and enablers to realize a more integrated approach. And these system elements go hand in hand. So you need to understand these systems along the way equally over all these aspects. I realized that in many situations the information available is limited. So, but it doesn't mean that there's no information at all. We see that we have the tendency that system understanding is something that scientists do, so that you need scientists to develop fundamental system understanding. That is of course handy, but that there are many, especially in these times, many open sources available on the internet that provides provide the tools and provides information that can help developing understanding of your own local system. And if this data is not available, we tend to use more and more numerical models to predict and forecast certain system processes that can be used in a relatively cost-effective way. So that is step one of the system understanding. Step two, identifying realistic alternatives. So to turn a traditional reactive perspective into a proactive approach, so problems become opportunities. And this leads to an eye-opener. That one way to come up with such innovative inverse ideas is to answer a couple of basic questions that you can ask while developing these alternatives. For example, are there alternative resources available that can be utilized to lower the cost of the construction? Typical infrastructure developments are constructed with hard materials, concrete, rock, asphalts, for example. However, there are natural resources available, often very close by to your project site, that are softer, sand or mud, or vegetation like mangroves or seagrass or salt marshes and wetlands, that can provide similar functions as these hard materials. So by using materials and resources that are closely available, it can help you creating more cost-effective solutions and providing added values for nature and society. So by using these materials that are sometimes considered as unsuitable, for example, mud that becomes available in a marine infrastructure project, often mud is being disposed offshore. However, we see more and more that this product can be of great value by integrating it into your solution by, for example, creating wetlands and mangrove areas. Another question you can ask is, can the system dynamics be used as a positive rather than a negative aspect? So utilizing tidal currents, utilizing wave action, utilizing sediment transport as an integral part of your solution, rather than blocking these aspects or try to minimize negative impact. You make use of these processes in your design. For example, as we've seen in the SED motor earlier in this presentation, where we use the tidal currents to distribute the sand along the coast rather than doing it ourselves. So step 3 is to evaluate the qualities of alternatives and pre-select an integral solution. More value does not imply a higher cost construction. So often integral solutions are considered as, or the perception is that they are more expensive. However, if you look at the win-win situations, small adjustments to an existing design may produce more value. It is worthwhile to explore more creativity in the design. So dare to embrace innovative ideas, test them, and show how they can be used in your solution. And it's important to note that you can use this, you can make this test an integral part of your development. So start with a small pilot, learn from this, and use the lessons learned to upskill the concept in a larger landscape solution. Of course, there are many uncertainties that need to be evaluated. Building with nature solutions, by definition, involve natural dynamics. Like I said, so that they are dynamic and is inherent a certain uncertainties. So handling these uncertainties is a normal part of a building with nature process, and this requires also a different approach, like I explained earlier, with the adaptive management approach, where you make monitoring and data collection an integral part of your design, construction, and maintenance process. Perform a cost-benefit analysis, taking into account considerations for the construction costs and the maintenance cost, as well as the benefits of all the functions involved. So we tend to look only at the cost and the benefits of the primary function of a solution. However, increase in recreation, for example, or increase in local economy, increase in natural values or ecosystem services can be quantified in this cost-benefit analysis and should be integrally part of this cost-benefit analysis. And if you do that, you see that there's a shift from the cost aspect to the benefit aspects. So you see that multifunctional solutions can be cheaper than single-purpose, functional solutions, as long as you take into account all these benefits in your cost-benefit analysis. So select or elaborate on your selected alternative. So you need to look at the practical restrictions and the governance context in order to assess your alternatives, and make sure that an innovative idea is elaborated in such a way that it can actually be constructed. So you need to look at the design requirements. Is there any knowledge missing that that need to be filled? So this is something that needs to be done in this step. So the implementation of solutions requires involvement of a network of actors and stakeholders. So you need to establish this network from the very beginning, and they need to be consulted and integrated in this process of the design process. So in this way, construction costs and maintenance costs, as well as the benefits of all the functions, can be included. But this is a continuous interaction between all these stakeholders. Also, it is beneficial to compare a traditional solution with the building with nature alternative. If you only look at the primary function of if you compare only the primary functions, so for example, the alternative approach is a concrete dike, and if you look at the same function that is provided by the building with nature approach, then it could very well be that the traditional approach turns out to be more cost effective. However, the traditional approach doesn't include all the additional benefits that are provided for nature, for society. So it's important that you compare apples with apples and not apples with pears. So the building with nature solution should be assessed as an integral solution and not as a multifunctional solution. And it's important in the process to compare the two continuously, and also to manage your stakeholders and manage your finance streams. So the last step, to prepare the solution for implementation in the next phase to realization. What would you need to do to actually implement the proposed solution? So often you lack knowledge, you lack available materials, there are certain sustainability criteria that needs to be met. So there are certain bottlenecks that will show up along the way that need to be tackled in the next phase. So if there's a knowledge gap, you can, for example, implement a small-scale pilot to fill these gaps and use that knowledge to further develop and upscale your solution. Try to involve the stakeholders in the search of additional funding if required. So often the funding is being sourced with regards to traditional solutions at one at one department, especially if these are governmental developments. Flood defense is being managed by one department of a ministry, or water quality is managed by another department or a different ministry. So funding is it's always difficult to find different funding streams that fund multifunctional projects. Ministries tend to look only within their own department how to realize how to tackle a certain challenge. And it's important to look over the boundaries of your ministries and over the boundaries of your discipline to combine these integrated solutions. A very important part of this phase is to prepare a risk analysis and contingency plans. Like I said, building with nature is dynamic. So make sure that the project takes this aspect into consideration. So you need to integrate an adaptive execution, adaptive management plans, and this requires a continuous feedback of data that comes in from your knowledge development and system understanding that feeds back into your design process. So this is a continuous approach, and then you need to integrate as an adaptive management strategy into your entire design process. So these are the 5 steps, and like I said, these 5 steps is not it's a continuous process that you go through. So you start at the initiation phase with the very first idea. You go through these steps at a very high level with all the stakeholders, and along the way, when the project becomes more clear and the objective becomes more clear, you can become more concrete and more practical and more detailed in your design development. So this takes time, but in the end, it will result in a more sustainable approach and also a more integral approach, with not only providing a cost-effective solution, but also added values for other services like nature and services for society. So this was my part about the design principles of building with nature. I can imagine that there are a few questions.
Yeah, there are some questions. Thank you, Foko. There are some questions in the chat, at least. You can look at those. The first question is quite of a generic nature. I think various participants are asking whether there are literature references and whether the presentations of today can be shared to the participants. Yeah. I think that will be done. Is that correct?
Yeah, one of my last slides, I have some information on this.
Okay, great. So that is one. And another question from Rini Vidayati is whether there are any cost-benefit analysis published on building with nature solutions.
That's a very good question. I think, let's say the business case of cost-benefit analysis of nature-based solutions in general is quite a hot topic. So there's a lot of development ongoing. There are, from the EcoShape perspective, we have developed several cost-benefit analysis of business cases from based on our pilots. They're quite site-specific. But now our consortium is in the process of publishing, I think, 2 or 3 papers on this topic based on the experience we have from all our pilots. And these publications will be made available, well, at least before the 25th of January. When the 25th of January, there's the Climate Adaptation Summit. That's an important moment in time for us when we release a lot of our results, and this is one of these results. So there will be a few white papers on cost-benefit analysis and business cases related to building with nature-based solutions.
Thank you. And then there is one extra question before we go into the next session. Is there a possibility that we will have a standard or a code for building with nature? So a little bit like a standard that you have for existing infrastructure solutions, but is there something like that for building with nature as well? And can you have such a standard at all? Or
Yeah,
maybe
that's.
more?
I think that's also a very good question. I will also come to that later in my next part about barriers and enablers. And indeed, one of the barriers is that there are no codes and standards specifically for building with nature, but that there are many codes and standards for the traditional engineering solutions. So our program focusing on developing technical guidelines. So each of these pilots result in a set of technical guidelines, and we make these guidelines as generic as possible, and we try to, let's say, influence and work together with these agencies and organizations that develop codes and standards to integrate building with nature principles and aspects into these guidelines. To give a short example, but I think that will be presented later also, the Building with Nature Indonesia project has developed a set of, I believe, 6 technical guidelines that are that will be published within the coming months, and together with our policy work and collaborative work with the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries and the work we do with the Ministry of Public Works, we try to have this information and these guidelines embedded in policies and in other institutional settings in order to provide enablers for developers to use these guidelines and these principles in their daily work. So this is a very important part of the upscaling of building with nature approach.
Thank you, Volko. I think it is good to go to the next part of the presentation. I think that connects well to the questions and to what you just discussed, and it's also then a nice intermediate step to the session 2 after that.
So this part will focus on the barriers and enablers for building with nature implementation. I again start with this slide because we see that, like I mentioned in the very beginning, that there's a large trend globally focusing on nature-based solutions. That nature-based solutions are the key for tackling the challenges we are facing at the moment. However, we see that there's very little uptake of this concept. There are certain projects being developed, but they're mostly one-off projects, and there's no standard mainstreaming of this concept yet. And that's mainly because of these 4 aspects. So there are certain barriers, and there are, more importantly, also enablers we have identified from our program that can help overcome these aspects. And basically, we have identified 6 key aspects that you need to focus on when realizing building with nature solutions. So traditionally, our focus was on the technical aspects. So try to understand the engineering part, try to understand let's say the engineering function of ecosystems and how to integrate them into infrastructure. But however, over time, we realized that is very important, but there are other aspects you need to focus on simultaneously or integrally. Otherwise, your technical solution will never be implemented. You can have a great portfolio proven concepts that have been physically implemented and engineered. However, if you don't do multi-stakeholder approach, if you don't include your stakeholders in the design process, if you don't manage and monitor your project well, if there's no institutional embedding, if there's no business case, and if you don't educate people on this principle, then this technical solution will never be implemented. So these are the 6 enablers we have identified you need to focus on for building with nature implementation. And I would like to go through a couple of them. There's not enough time to do all of them, but there's plenty of information available. I will tell later where you can find this. So I will focus on 3 of these. I think actually 4 of these enablers. It's the multi-stakeholder approach. it's the management and monitoring and maintenance aspects, the institutional embedding, and the capacity building. So these are the 4 I will focus on, but there's, if needed in the Q&A session, we can also discuss the other 2. So the multi-stakeholder approach. I think a multi-stakeholder approach is relevant for all the enablers. So this is a very key aspect, and also a challenging aspect, as I mentioned in the first Q&A session. A multi-stakeholder approach is a fundamental part of the integral solution you want to realize in the end, and it's needed from the very beginning. And it is often you see that, especially in traditional solutions, that stakeholders are involved in the process at a very late stage, which often result in many delays and misunderstanding, and also opposition of the solution that is in the end being implemented. So, and because building with nature is new, it's also new for many stakeholders. So involve them in the process from the beginning, and you will see that you will create better understanding and mutual understanding of the challenges that are at hand, but also the opportunities that are there. So successful projects we have seen require stakeholder management from the very start, and that includes the design and the implementation, operational, and the maintenance phase. And some key aspects to consider here is that the cooperation between stakeholders and integral and multifunctional approaches. There needs to be a cooperation between the stakeholders. You need to build on coalition forming and co-creation and public participatory approaches to create a shared ambition. And you need to assess what your stakeholders are and try to engage them from the very beginning. So I want to illustrate this with a case. The case is the multifunctional marshes. It is not necessarily about the technical aspects of this case, but I would like to illustrate how stakeholder management works and how you can benefit from it. So this is a salt marsh development in the Netherlands. It's in the north of the Netherlands, where a sea dike provides flood safety for the hinterland. It's a very important dike. The area behind the dike is basically below sea level. So if the dike is removed, the entire area will flood. It's an important agricultural landscape. In front of the dike, on the right side, you see a very important salt marsh. It's important for multiple reasons. It's important for flood safety because the salt marshes reduces the wave energy that in the end enters the dike. So it's part of the flood defense system. It has a function, a nature function. So it's a very important nature environment, ecosystem with a lot of birds, feeding ground for fish, etc. It's an intertidal area. And it has also a function for the agriculture because many farmers use this area, especially the higher lying parts of this marsh, to feed their stock. So this dike is not safe anymore and needs to be reinforced. So you can do this in multiple ways. There's a monofunctional solution. So basically raise the dike with rocks and asphalt, and so very, very single purpose. Or you can focus on a more multiple functional flood defense system where you create added value for nature development, where salt marshes are increased, recreational functions, and also agricultural functions. So this is a more integrated approach where you focus on, let's say, the opportunities rather than minimizing only the flood risk. So who are the stakeholders in this? Basically the government. The government is responsible for the flood, and that's their only responsibility in this situation. There's the local community, which are mainly farmers, And there's the NGO, a nature conservation NGO that is responsible for maintaining and conserving the salt marshes, which has an important nature function, like I said. So typically, monofunctional solutions are implemented. So that means that the government has the most benefit from it. It will choose for the most cost-effective solutions because its only responsibility in this case is managing flood and reduce the flood risk. So the NGO is not included in this approach, and also the farmers not. So it's a single purpose and with very low added value for other stakeholders that are living there and have a responsibility in the area. So looking at the multifunctional approach, the government will have of course, its flood defense function, objective sorted, but he is not so much interested in all the other functions. However, Nature Conservancy and the farmers, they benefit a lot from this multifunctional solution because there's a lot of aerial made available for the farmers to feed their stock. That activity is also important for nature development because the stock keeps basically intact and manages the salt marsh grow. And the NGO is happy because the nature areal is increased and has more biodiversity and better protection of this area. So if you combine the benefits for all the stakeholders, you see that the multifunctional solution results in an overall higher value than the single purpose solution, where only the government has the most benefits and the other stakeholders less. So if you do this assessment from the very beginning of let's say, the initiation phase of a project development, you see that it's easier to integrate this multifunctional approach from the beginning. However, if you start with this multifunctional approach and you start developing this from your own department, and later on you will include the stakeholder engagement, you can imagine that will result in well, at least a discussion on if this is the right way to go, and you've spent already a lot of time developing this multifunctional solution, this monofunctional solution. So the first one, the benefits are for the government. However, in the multifunctional one, the benefits are for the society in its entirety. So the added value for collaboration here is that you work together from the beginning and you identify together what the outcome is of your design process. So the multi-stakeholders collectively determine the outcome. And in this process, each stakeholder values the solution from its own perspective, and that's always a challenging process. But if you do this together, so basically you bring all the stakeholders in one room and you value this and you discuss it from each perspective, then you also create an understanding for each other why this stakeholder chooses for a certain solution. And then stakeholders will only collaborate when this is beneficial for their work alone. So they have to see why collaborating will provide more value to the solution for their own than if they are doing this separately. So that's an important element in the stakeholder approach. And if you do these steps throughout the process, from the initiation phase, design phase, engineering phase, construction and maintenance, if you do this stakeholder engagement and valuation of the objectives collectively, it takes time, but it will result overall in a higher value solution for society in its whole. So the next enabler, adaptive monitoring, management, maintenance. I've mentioned this a few times already. That the dynamics of a nature-based solutions requires an adaptive approach, and this adaptive approach focuses on the monitoring to collect data in order to implement this adaptive management strategy. And the maintenance phase of a nature-based solution is very important. Of course, maintenance of an infrastructure development is always important, but as they are dynamic, it is important to know to what extent they are dynamic, what the bandwidth is you need to stay in order to cover your objectives, and therefore how to maintain them in a cost-effective way. So this is basically like what I just said. So balancing. The key aspects to consider is to balance initial efforts and investments against adaptivity and resilience. So we have a tendency to over-dimension certain projects in order to limit risks. However, that also increases the costs a lot. So then you need to find a balance in that. Making maintenance strategy as an integral part of your development. So often maintenance will be dealt with after the project realization, but if you take maintenance, make it part of your initiation in your design process, that this is an important aspect, then that will result in a more cost-effective management strategy overall in the end. Organization and techniques for adaptive management and monitoring to deal with the natural dynamics in various times and spatial skills. So that's, like I said in the beginning, you need to focus on now implementing this approach from the very beginning. The Houterdijk case. I'm just looking at the time. If I'm doing okay, I think I need to speed up a little bit. So the Houterdijk is a dike located in the Netherlands that had to be reinforced, and the dike could either be reinforced with traditional rocks and asphalts or with alternative building with nature solutions. The government chose to do this with they wanted to do this in a building with nature approach using sandy reinforcements rather than a rocky reinforcement. Why? Because sand was available locally and rock is not available in the Netherlands. So sand in principle is a more cost-effective material resource to reinforce a dike in this environment. However, this type of reinforcement was never done before. Therefore, we initiated together with the government a pilot to test the concept in relative small scale, 500 meters along the dike, with different types of vegetation and materials. And we did an extensive monitoring campaign for over 3 years to see how this small sandy solution would behave over time. And based on the lessons learned, we gained confidence, and the government gained confidence that this solution could also work over the entire dike. So while we executing the pilot, that was only 500 meters wide, we gained confidence. We took the lessons learned from the pilot and included them and integrated them in the tender and in the design process for the full-scale dike. Right after the pilot was finished in 2018, the construction started of the upscaling part of the dike reinforcement. And now the entire dike is covered basically in a building with nature solution, with a large part being a nature reserve. There's vegetation, there are sandy soft shores, there's room for fish, vegetation to grow. It's a great place to visit, and it still holds its primary function, a flood defense system. So this is a great example of how you can use a small-scale pilot to test a certain solution that is new and dynamic, and upscale the lessons learned into a full-scale design. Institutional embedding. Mentioned a few times already, it's a very important aspect of nature for building with nature implementation, that there's an enabling environment within the institutions to create building with nature solutions. I will skip this definition. I will go straight to the example. I want to give an example of the Hondsbosch sea defense, which is also a sandy solution. On the left side, you see the old situation. It was a traditional sea dike that no longer fulfilled the safety requirements, so the dike had to be reinforced. It has a very important flood defense function. Traditionally, you would reinforce this with rock and asphalt to hide in the dike, a very single-purpose solution. Instead of doing that, a sandy foreshore was chosen. So the dike was left in place, but the safety function, the flood defense structure, was completely taken over by the sandy foreshore that was constructed. It's not only a sandy foreshore, but also a dune area, recreational areas, inland dune lakes were constructed. So it was a multifunctional nature-based solution. So how do you arrange this from an institutional perspective? Again, this is a new way, a new concept that is implemented, so that requires a different way of tendering and construction and maintenance. So traditionally, you would do this in a very linear way. So the government will develop a project plan. There is a certain procurement time. The government will send out a tender for the market to bid on. A certain contractor wins the tender. It executes it. It hands it over to the government, and then the government is responsible for maintenance. However, because this was such an innovative idea with a lot of new and local context aspects, the government decided to use a different approach, which is like a parallel plan and tender procedure. So the government developed a project plan up to 80%. So there was still a lot of flexibility in it. And during the project plan, certain selection of bidders had a dialogue with the government in order to provide their technical input and ideas on how this new idea, or how this new concept could be implemented. The government took on board all these lessons from the bidders. They developed the final project plan, and then a second dialogue phase started. So the final plan was again submitted to the bidders. All the bidders could respond to it. There was another discussion, and that resulted in a final tender. So it was like a dialogue process between the government and the market, which resulted in it took a longer time, but in the end, a full design of the building with nature solution was integrated in the tender. A great aspect here is that instead of making the contractor only responsible for the construction phase, the contractor was responsible for the design, for the construction, and 20 years of maintenance of this building with nature solution. So part of the risk that is typically at the side of the government was now being brought to the market, and the contractor was responsibility to manage the risk of maintaining such a dynamic nature-based solution. So it's a very nice way of dealing and creating incentive also for the market to come up with new ideas and new ways of constructing these type of developments. In a contract phase, the government built in, and that's also an institutional incentive. They build in an incentive for the contractor to score on not only on a cost-effective approach, but also on a sustainable approach. So the contractor with the most sustainable bid was rewarded with a fictional discount on their bid. So you could submit a higher proposal, but if it was more sustainable, you could get a discount, and in this way still win the project based on not only on cost but also on quality. Building with nature was a fundamental aspect of the criteria that a contractor could be rewarded on. So this is also an answer to a question earlier. How can you create incentives and guidance to implement building with nature? It doesn't necessarily have to come only from the government, but also market parties like contractors and engineering firms. You can create incentives for them to come up with more innovative and more sustainable nature-based solutions. I think this is a very nice way of involving the market in these type of developments. I'm looking at the time, Frank. I think, am I running out of time?
Bit, yes.
Okay, then I'll skip this one. Then this will be my final slides. So how to continue? As asked before in the questions, there's EcoShape just released a new website with all this information on enablers, on concepts, on landscapes, on other stories. They're all available online. I also would like to join you to join our webinar series about building with nature. These are currently ongoing, and each webinar is about one of the enablers. So if you want to learn more about these enablers, please join our our webinars. They're also available online if you want to watch them back. So this is what I wanted to share with you on the barriers and enablers and the building with nature approach. Let me know if there's any questions.
Thank you, Foko. In the meantime, there were indeed at least 3 questions. One question, maybe it's related to what you just presented at the end, is about cost sharing. You, of course, showed that costs can be shared also with contractors, for example. But the question is also that Satya Reza Ahmad is asking, when you share the costs among stakeholders, is there also a risk of balancing the bargaining power of each stakeholder in this process? And have you encountered that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that really depends, of course, on your local governance setting. In the Netherlands, we are quite used to working in a collaborative way, and there are also ways to put these conditions in a contract. So I think there are certain ways throughout the process and development phase where you can have a very transparent way of communicating with your stakeholders, making all the information available for the public, for example, making all these dialogues public. There are ways to cover this. Even in the Netherlands, we have examples where we work in an alliance contract with the government. So a contractor together with the government signing an alliance contract, and they are collaboratively together developing a project from A till Z, including environmental impact assessments, public hearings, everything. So it can be done as long as you're transparent about the process.
Okay, thank you. Then there's another question which asks, is there a difference between the building with nature approach and integrated coastal zone management? Or is there anything specific about building with nature that makes it different? Or is building with nature maybe one of the tools to achieve integrated coastal zone management?
Yeah, I think this is the latter. So building with nature, coastal zone management focuses on the coast and the coastal zone. Building with nature can be basically applied. This approach can be applied elsewhere, for example, in river systems or lakes. Yeah, I think building with nature approach is a very good approach that can be used in an integrated coastal zone management approach.
Oh. Yeah. And I think there's one last question, about that nature is very dynamic, and if we should be aware of any prior condition to make nature-based approach work effectively. And I think probably this relates to having a systems understanding from the start. And if you have that, then you actually also ensure that the dynamics of a system are included in your design or can be included.
Yeah, indeed. And the dynamics are often considered as a challenge. It is, of course, a challenge, but it also provides a lot of opportunities because traditional solutions are static and not able to change with the environment. And you know that the environment we are living is changing rapidly due to all kinds of processes like climate change and sea level rise. And because of the dynamics of nature, you can use the opportunity to make growing systems so that your solution grows along with the sea level rise.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Foko, for these 3 presentations. I think we learned a lot on these 3 sessions today. And of course, like you said, this information will be available online. And I think also the presentations or any of the information from this session can be shared with the participants after. Then I would like to go to the next session, and I think everyone is very eager and happy to hear about actually a real case of the application of building with nature from Indonesia. So I'm very honored to introduce to you Mrs. Fegi Nurhabni of the Directorate of Coastal and Small Islands Utilization, also at the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries of Indonesia. And she will share experience lessons learned from the Building with Nature implementation in Indonesia, from I think the location in Demak and North Java and upscaling locations elsewhere in Indonesia. So we're very honored to hear your experience.
Thank you, Frank. Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning to you, Frank and Foko. I can see your eyes is still like, I hope it's not very morning to you. Yeah. Okay, can I share my screen? Selamat sore, Bapak dan Ibu. Oh. Okay. So my presentation will highlight about the implementation of building with nature in Indonesia and what we learned from the implementation for the last So I would like to introduce myself. I see a lot of familiar faces actually in the room, but for you who doesn't know me yet, my name is Fegi. I'm the coordinator for disaster mitigation and climate change adaptation in the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. Okay, let's start. Okay, I think the context why we need the building with nature approach is because globally the coastal area is vulnerable due to population growth, degradation of protective ecosystems such as mangroves, and also land subsidence, unsustainable infrastructure, and also the impact of climate change. This chart shows you that Indonesia is prone to coastal erosion. So you see the bullets there. The red one is the erosion rate, and while the yellow is the sedimentation. So you can see some provinces has a higher rate of coastal erosion than others, especially in Java. Sorry. See, in Java, we can see that the highest province with a coastal erosion area is the Central Java. And that's one of the reasons why we choose Demak as the pilot project for building with nature Indonesia. Okay, the implementation. So this building with nature is a collaboration of various institutions. In Indonesia, we have the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries and also the Ministry of Public Works and Housing. And at the Dutch part, we have the EcoSafe Consortium and also the Wetlands International. And we also have some others institutions that support us in implementing the collaboration. It's including the Wageningen University, Kota Kita, with Evan and Boss, UNESCO, IHE, TU Delft, and I cannot see all, but it's also the Blue Forest, von Lieberman, and also Delta Res. So we all collaborate and have our own role in conducting the implementation of building with nature in the MAC. So I think you can all see my screen. This is the MAC. This is the where we do the intervention. So this is not very far from Semarang. Actually, it's in border with Semarang city. So you can see the left side is already Semarang. So the area here in Sayung, Kecamatan Sayung is very severe, have a very severe erosion, and it lost for about 1,000 hectares of land. And they also have 2 villages that are already relocated to another area, and a lot of people affected by the erosion and flooding. So they lost their home, they lost their fish ponds, and they lost their income. So what we want to do there is we have the dream to collaboratively increase the condition of the environment, but also not neglecting the economy of the people. So we want to restore the green belt. We want to restore the riverine area, but also to make the aquaculture or fish pond is more productive than before, because some fish pond here are already idle, so it's not productive anymore. We want to make it better, and maybe using it but with something that is local, but can have impact to the economy of the community. So this is the drone of the area. You can see here we make the interventions. We built about 9 kilometers of permeable structures, both by MMIF and also the Building with Nature Consortium. So we call the permeable structure here is hybrid engineering, or HE. You can see this is the lines here. And we try to revitalize the coastline and halted the erosion. And also we have the ownership and maintenance transfer to the community. So the community will be responsible for the ownership and the maintenance of the structures, and also involve the village and district budget allocation to do this. The challenge that we face there is the structures, because it's made of nature material. It's require intensive maintenance. You have to maintain, the pole, the bamboo pole, and also the branches need to be replaced regularly, especially for the branches, because if there is a high tide, sometimes the branches is just gone, and you have to replace it again so that it will function maximum. And also the north coast of Java is severe, have a severe land subsidence. So the rate of the sediment that is formed behind the structure sometimes cannot keep up with the rate of land subsidence. And the other challenge is also about the land speculation due to plans for industry development, because like I said previously, the area is very close to Semarang city, and actually you can see the Semarang harbor from the villages. The other activity, the other program that also conducted in Demak as part of Building with Nature is the BioRix incentive mechanism. So it's kind of fun gift to the group, the community group, and it's a conditional fund so that they can restore their ecosystem. So you can see this is there are some area that already intervene with the biorights mechanism. So the area here in next to the coast area is already replanting with mangroves. So it's not a fish pond anymore, but it's already planted by with mangroves. It's also the same with the area here near the river. So the river also has a what is called setback that is planting with mangrove. So the challenge for the biorights is first is about the changes in budget allocation. So that between the groups, which group is doing what, and how much the fund that they will have is always been very dynamic. And also sometimes also the Demak also have severe storms that destroy they already planned, and also the land subsidence. But let me remind you that biorights is not only about planting the mangroves back into the coastal area, but also how to make the old fish pond, the idle fish pond, more productive. So so that it can bring economic benefit for the community. Okay, this is Demak. We interviewed a few villages there. One of them is Timbul Sloko. This is a very early stage of the project. I think we haven't signed our collaboration agreement at that time yet, but we try with a very small pilot project to see how it how it make impact to the coastal area. It's just like Focus said before, you start with the small project, pilot project, and then you scaling up. So this is what we that also happened in Demak. So we start in 2013 and 2014. We try with a small hybrid engineering structures there. And then at 2015, we built more structures in a larger scale. This is in Bedono and Timbul Sloko. You can see the red line is the hybrid engineering built by the EcoShape, and the white one is the hybrid engineering structures built by Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. Okay, this is the monitoring, the drone of the area. About 2 or 3 years after the constructions, you can see there are sediments behind the structures, and it's if the structures is maintained well and the sediment keep coming like this, the area is ready to be planted with mangroves. So it will bring back the natural green belt of the coastline. This is Desa Purworejo in 2017. This is look like this, and After the construction, we conduct some monitoring in 2018 and 2019, and you can see the sedimentation already there, and also some area already planted with mangroves. So it brings back the mangrove naturally, and if you want to be faster, you can also replant the mangroves or rehabilitate the ecosystem. This is in Purworejo, the construction in Purworejo. You can see that I think the sedimentation is very nice. That's about Demak. And I also like to share with you some other examples, upscaling that we are doing in several areas in Indonesia. So from Demak, from the initial pilot project in Demak, we try to replicate the building, not the building of nature, but specifically the hybrid engineering structure to other area in north coast of Java first, and also last year we tried to replicate in another island, especially in Lombok Timur, Bone, and Bombana. And right now I'm in Lombok actually, and I will see one of the structure tomorrow morning. So in total, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fishery already built about 24 kilometers of the structures, and most of them are located in Demak because it's part of our role in the corporation with the in the Building with Nature consortium. This is Semarang in Trimulyo, Kelurahan Trimulyo. So you can see the mangroves is very good here. But every location has their own problems. And this one also has its own problem, especially because the area will be passed by the new toll road from Demak to Semarang. So it will become the water retention area. So these mangroves probably will, I don't know whether they can stand or not, because from what I know, the construction will be, there will be no doors, or the one that will give access to the water to come from the ocean, and so it could be just for water retention. Meanwhile, the area actually is quite successful. Actually, the sedimentation rate is good, and the mangroves grows naturally. You can see this part. And this one is the one that we built in Gresik in 2017 also. It's in Ujung Pangkah. Probably some of you know the area. The sedimentation rate is also very good. The area behind the mangroves are fish ponds. So the problem that happens in Gresik is, after the sedimentation is good, they try to convert the new land into new fish ponds. And yeah, it's so sad, because actually our plan after this, it's we will plant the mangroves there. So we will and then so that the erosion will not happen again in this area. But they want to open more shrimp pond to the new land. That's also a problem. This is in Rembang, also in Central Java. So Central Java has a lot of hybrid engineering structures. You can see here the coastal area, the coastline that not protected with the the hybrid structures is still eroded very bad, while the area protected with hybrid structures is gain more sediment and ready to be used for natural for mangroves. Actually, we want, the concept is after the sediment is there, it will be continued by planting the mangroves. So when the structures are gone, because it's made of bamboos and branches, so it's very fragile. The mangrove behind it is already strong enough and become the natural barrier for the coastal area. This is the same area, but different angle. It's beautiful. The sedimentation is beautiful. And there's a lot of also baby mangroves there. So a few years later, actually, we can see if there's nothing happen and to interrupt the process, we can see a lot of mangroves grows in the area naturally. This one here in Lombok Timur, we tried last year. We tried to implement the structures in areas, but not in Java. So we choose 2 areas in Sulawesi, which are Bombone and Bombana, and the other one in Lombok is East Lombok. So something specific about Lombok, the tidal flood is very big. So when it seems like when like this, it's like you're making a wall in the middle of nowhere. But actually, when it's high tide, the structure is covered with water, full with water. So it's because of the tunggang pasang. Because of the high tide and the low tide have a big difference. This is in Bone. So it's the same. The area behind the structures is fish pond, and the fish pond here are big, very big. It's a big scale. So Bombana is one of the area that produce fish for the Southeast Sulawesi area, and also until to Makassar, to South Sulawesi. So they provide a lot of fish, aquaculture fish for the area. Here, if you notice, the design is quite different with the one that we have in the previous area. And my last example will be Bone in South Sulawesi. Here, the construction are different. We have this triangle here. The reason is because of the pole, the bamboo pole cannot enter the mud as long as we plan to make it about 2 to 3 meters deep, but it cannot reach because there are dead coral reefs under this the mud. So to make the structure stronger, we put another bamboo behind it and make it into like triangle one, so that it will make the structure stronger. Okay, this will be my last slide. I still have time, right, Frank? Yeah, this is the challenges and lesson learned that we can conclude from our experience for the last few years. The first challenge is about land use change. So before, I can give you an example like this. Before the area is abandoned, is not used by by everybody. But when the new land emerge, which should be the tanah negara, actually it will be tanah negara, but usually then people will like occupy the land and open and use it for activities that is not planned for the area. So like, open the new fish pond rather than make it as a green belt for the area. The second challenges is about the property rights. A lot of coastal area in Indonesia have the certificate. Even though there is no land there, the land is already gone, but the certificate is still there. So when the land emerge again, the owner will feel like, oh, this is mine. And they want to maybe sell it or whatever, but actually, this is one of the problems that we face in our coastal area, and we constantly contacted with BPN for the land National Land Agency for that, whether their certificate can be canceled or not, or because based on the law, actually, when the area is already gone for some period of time, actually the certificate will be canceled automatically. But yeah. And the last one is about the community awareness of the project. You see, in the project in Demak, we also involve the community there, but and there's a special community empowerment for the duration of the project. But in the other area, the upscaling area, usually we don't have that kind of empowerment. So sometimes the community is not like, oh, this is only the project. They don't care. They don't know that these structure are built for their own good. If the land is back, that's good for them, but they don't want to, sometimes they will like, they don't really care about how to use it. They don't use it in the nature friendly way. So I close my presentation with some point of lesson learned. It's also echoing what Foko already said about the project or the implementation of building with nature concept. There is no standard blueprint for the project, so you have to really know the area. You have to know the people before you come with the solution. We use bamboo because it's easy to be found in the area. But if we build the hybrid structure in another area, maybe in Sumatra, maybe bamboo is not easier to find. Maybe we can use with another woods, or in Kalimantan. So, and the design also is not standard. You see, we make a lot of modification based on the hydrooceanography characteristic, and also based on the condition of the area. The other lesson learned is about embracing the local community. So it will bring their sense of belonging. So they will feel that they own the activity, they own the structure, they want to maintain the structure even without our intervention. And this one will make sure that the project will sustain until even though the duration of the project is already finished, but the concept actually will still there, and they can replicate what the project done by their own. And the last one is about the sustainability of the project. And yeah, so the environment and economy have the same important they have the same important, and we cannot neglect one to the other. So yes, we protect the environment, but we cannot forget that there are people there and they need income. They need to improve their economy, and that should be included in the planning of the activity. Thank you. Frank, back to you, Frank. Thank you.
Terima kasih banyak. Thank you very much, Bu Peggy, for your excellent presentation on the first-hand experience of building with nature in Indonesia, in Demak. And actually also when showing the different other experiences across Indonesia, where you actually showed how you can use the same principles, but very flexibly adapted to local circumstances. And I think it was very nice to see the pictures in your presentation. So thank you very much again. I see there are a few questions from the participants. One of the questions is whether there is a plan to implement the Greenbelt project in other coastal areas like in East Lombok, but I think you already mentioned East Lombok, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they are eager to get in contact with you to have more discussions and maybe follow up as well. So that's maybe a good step also for community engagement, I don't know.
Yeah, the project in East Lombok took place in Jerowaru. I don't know whether that's close to Yubu or not, Ibu Maria. But the structure is not for coastal defense, actually. It's for the sediment trap. Maybe that's, I have to underline that, because I see the question below is like, asking about it. Yeah.
Okay. Then there's another question. When using mangroves to protect the coast, is there any numerical modeling involved in the design process or other technical measures you need to assess in order to do this?
This is about mangroves, right? Not the structure.
Yeah, I think the mangroves, or maybe the structure, or maybe of experience, but the modeling as a tool in general is useful for building with nature to design these sort of.
Yeah, actually, before building this construction, we are conducting the survey and also the modeling. So we come to the best design that we think the best design for the area. So we change a lot, to see where the sediment transport come and how's the wave and the wind and everything. We calculated all, and we choose the best design that will have the maximum sediment rate. And it's also the same with the mangroves, I think, because it will be naturally grows actually behind the structures. So whether if the structure is built at the right position, I think that the mangroves is also will grow and protected for a few years. Yeah. Coco, you raise your hand.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Coco.
Just to add to what you just answered, Vufeki, is that in the project in Demak, we indeed implemented the permeable structures, and based on all the monitoring data, a model was set up and is being validated with the monitoring results. And Deltares, who was in the lead for the Knowledge Institute from the Netherlands, was one of the project partners. He was in the lead for this modeling exercise. is about to publish their findings and their model in a report, which will be made available through our network as well shortly. So if you keep an eye on the newsletters on this project, it will become available.
Yeah, I think some of the other questions will probably also be addressed through these leaflets and other productions from the project that will be published soon or that are already published. Like also a question on, I think, build or create a natural breakwater. It of course takes time for the mangroves. But the question is there an alternative so that you can actually shorten the time, or maybe have an intermediate step before the mangroves have grown, that you have something else as a temporary solution, maybe? Maybe that's something technically to think of when you have to create it.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, please, Paco.
Yeah, that's a very good question, because indeed, like 100% nature-based solutions take time to grow. So you don't have immediate results from the intervention. Like if you build a concrete wall, when the wall is finished, then it has immediate results. So there are also intermediate solutions and gray-green solutions that have that can both have like immediate response, but also facilitate growth of the natural system over time. And it's based on the pilots we've executed. It takes about 3 to 4 years to have not a full-grown forest, but to have vegetation developed at such a stage that it will contribute to the function of the flood defense system. So there are integrated solutions and combined solutions possible with a temporary, let's say, temporary traditional solution that facilitates the growth of nature-based solutions.
Thank you. And then maybe one last question, I think, related to the land ownership question that you also raised, Bufagi, in your presentation. What about the ownership of the land uses when the project is completed? Of course, you have created more land through sedimentation, or maybe you restored it. Or who does own the land after that? Or is that the local issue, or is it depending on the rights?
Yeah, thanks. This is from Pak Andi Utomo, yeah. He's my lecturer. He's my lecturer. Yeah, Pak Andi, about the land ownership is it's quite interesting and tricky also. But there's in Undang-Undang Agraria, actually, it said that if the land is already occupied by water for certain times, it will be, if it emerges again, it will belong to the country for the Tanah Negara. So it will be the national land, or not national, but also the local government. So in some area, the land that grows behind the structure, it's being certificate by the government, local government. But others, sometimes they neglect the status and just use it. Especially sometimes the Kepala Desa, the chief of the village, sometimes just use surat keterangan, some kind of just a letter from him, and they say that this person can use this for 20 years or 30 years for fish ponds or so. And that's what we find a lot of happens in the north coast of Java. I hope that answers your question, Pak.
Actually, what you also need to do, and apart from the technical systems understanding, it's also good to have a legal system understanding in that case if you do something. It reminds me of a lot things happening in the Philippines, where you had a similar situation of different ministries and local communities and local government unities having different says about what kind of land appears where. So you need to know locally exactly what happens to be adaptive in that sense.
Yes,
Okay.
and yeah, that will, and we also learned that before we construct the structures, right now we make an agreement with the community and also the local government, so that they won't use the land to another purpose rather than for coastal protection. So I think that's what we learned from these past years.
So actually, that's an example of the multi-stakeholder process to ensure everyone is agreeing on what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we came to the end of this session, and maybe also to the end of the whole webinar today. I would like to warmly thank all the speakers of today, Peggy and Foko, and also the introductions from the ministry. Very, very much thank you. I also want to say thank you very much, terima kasih banyak, to all the participants, distinguished guests. Thank you for attending to this webinar. We were happy that you were all here and you could attend, and also thank you for your questions and interaction with the speakers to actually learn from it. We hope and we know, of course, that this is not the last of this type of work. The government of Indonesia is going to continue with this type of work. Also, the consortium partners in it will also work in Indonesia and also across Asia with similar approaches. We hope to be able to work with you and meet you again in any of the sessions. So I would like to thank you all again.
Yeah. Thank you. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu telah hadir.
And thank you, Ministry. Thank the Ministry for organizing and hosting this session at this event.
Thank you to all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bapak Ibu, nanti materinya akan dikirim ya. Akan ada link.
Ya, Bu ya. Ibu.
Ya, Pak.
Lagi lewat email ya.
Kan Bapak waktu daftar udah ada emailnya, Pak. Waktu absen
Iya, itu.
Dia akan dikirim, Pak.
Thank you ya, terima kasih. Bagus itu presentasinya.
Ya, terima kasih, Pak.
Mengenai Semarang itu memang luar biasa itu. Masalahnya banyak itu.
Kita belajar sama-sama, Pak. Ada Bu Vita di sini kayaknya. Pak Aryo, terima kasih sudah datang.
Terima kasih Bu Becky, sukses selalu. Thank you everybody for having this remarkable event. Thank you.
Yeah. Pak Haryo is from the Institute of Technology of 11 Maret.
Ya. 10 November.
10 November, sorry. 10 of November.
Bagus.
On the 12th of November 2020, the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs Directorate for Development, Economic and Environmental Affairs held the workshop on mainstreaming ocean climate relations in global climate discussion. On the 16th until the 21st of November, the AIS Forum supported the training on Mangrove Health Index held by Research Center for Westpac. On the 18th of November, the AIS Forum partnered with Gadjah Mada University's Department of Development Geography in conducting the training on the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, in tourism industry. On the 19th of November, the AIS Blue Startup Hub collaborated with Angel Investment Network, conducting the Blue Hub, which discussed opportunities in building solutions for the sustainable ocean economy. In this opportunity, the AIS Blue Hub invited various experts, including from UNDP Africa's Accelerator Lab and NVU Netherlands. On the 23rd of November, the AIS Forum partnered with the Indonesian Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs, held a workshop on sea level rise and its impact to the state's boundaries, the case of the archipelagic and island countries. The expert panel from AIS countries has been invited to share insights and strategic solutions on the impact of climate change. On the 30th of November, the AIS Forum and the UNDP's Marine Plastic Debris Projects will launch the Ending Plastic Pollution Innovation Challenge through a workshop. To share best practices from Indonesia's experience with Marine Spatial Planning or MSP, and to encourage AIS Forum participating countries to develop and implement their own MSPs, Indonesian Directorate General of Marine Spatial Management and the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on the 1st of December 2020. On the 3rd of December, the Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on building with nature approach in coastal management. This approach can improve area protection and resilience for vulnerable communities. As a road to the Archipelagic and Island States Forum's third ministerial meeting, the AIS Forum Secretariat arranged several side events which are conducted in collaboration with various academic institutions, government, and private sector. On the 12th of November 2020, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Directorate for Development, Economic and Environmental Affairs held the workshop on mainstreaming ocean climate relations in global climate discussion. On the 16th until the 21st of November, the AIS Forum supported the training on Mangrove Health Index held by Research Center for Oceanography of the Indonesia Institute of Sciences or LIPI and the UNESCO IOC Subcommission for the Western Pacific or WESTPAC. Of November, the AIS Forum partnered with Gadjah Mada University UNDP Africa's Accelerator Lab and NVU Netherlands. On the 23rd of November, the AIS Forum partnered with the Indonesian Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs, held a workshop on sea level rise and its impact to the state's boundaries, the case of the archipelagic and island countries. The expert panel from AIS countries has been invited to share insights and strategic solutions on the impact of climate change. On the 30th of November, the AIS Forum and the UNDP's Marine Plastic Debris Projects will launch the Ending Plastic Pollution Innovation Challenge through a workshop. To share best practices from Indonesia's experience with Marine Spatial Planning or MSP, and to encourage AIS Forum participating countries to develop and implement their own MSPs, Indonesian Directorate General of Marine Spatial Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on the 1st of December 2020. On the 3rd of December, the Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on building a approach in coastal. This approach can improve area protection and resilience for vulnerable communities. As a road to the Archipelagic and Island States Forum's third ministerial meeting, the AIS Forum which are conducted in collaboration with various academic institutions, government, and private sector. On the 12th of November 2020, the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs Directorate for Development, Economic and Environmental Affairs held the workshop on mainstreaming ocean climate relations in global climate discussion. On the 16th until the 21st of November, the AIS Forum supported the training on Mangrove Health Index held by Research Center for Oceanography of the Indonesia Institute of Sciences, or LIPI, and the UNESCO IOC Subcommission for the Western Development Goals, or SDGs, in tourism industry. On the 19th of November, the AIS Blue Startup Hub collaborated with Angel Investment Network, conducting the Blue Innovation Workshop, which discussed opportunities in building solution for the sustainable ocean economy. In this opportunity, the AIS Blue Hub invited various experts, including from UNDP Africa's Accelerator Lab and NVU Netherlands. On the 23rd of November, the AIS Forum partnered with the Indonesian Coordinating Ministry for Maritime and Investment Affairs, held a workshop on sea level rise and its impact to the state's boundaries, the case of the archipelagic and island countries. The expert panel from AIS countries has been invited to share insights and strategic solutions on the impact of climate change. On the 30th of November, the AIS Forum and the UNDP's Marine Plastic Debris Projects will launch the Ending Plastic Pollution Innovation Challenge through a workshop. To share best practices from Indonesia's experience with marine spatial planning, or MSP, and to encourage AIS Forum participating countries to develop and implement their own MSPs, Indonesian Directorate General of Marine Spatial Management and the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on the 1st of December 2020. On the 3rd of December, the Indonesian Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries will hold a workshop on building with nature approach in coastal management. This approach can improve area protection and resilience for vulnerable communities.